Alright guys, we're back staring at my engine bay, and in this video we are going to talk about oil consumption. And this is a pretty common issue on second generation B58s. I've seen a lot of people talking about this both on the BMW forums and the Toyota forums, but I feel like a lot of the community members are kind of giving BMW a pass on this and just not really taking it as seriously as we should. So I kind of wanted to share the information that I have in this video, and hopefully this will help you out if you're facing this problem or want to make sure that a car you're looking at buying doesn't have this problem, so that way you can have the best ownership experience possible. Now, I first became aware of this issue in 2020 on the M340i, and a lot of owners were talking about having this oil consumption issue. And it seemed like it was pretty widespread. Most of us just figured that it was like the first year of the TU engine, so there was some issue with the first round of engines that were causing it to have oil consumption issues. But then I kind of created a new relationship when they put the 6-port engine into the Supra, and more people on the Supra forums also started complaining about oil consumption issues as well. And that's when I began to associate it with specifically the TU 6-port engines seeming to have this chronic issue with oil consumption. So what typically happens is people are driving their cars, and after maybe 1,000, 2,000, or maybe 3,000 miles, their little oil light will come on. And when you bring it to the dealership, all they do is top off your oil and send you on your way. And then maybe again another 1,000 or 2,000 miles after that, you'll get the oil consumption light again. In really bad cases, I've seen people that have the light come on every like 500 to 1,000 miles. And so it gets really annoying. Obviously, it's something that's not going to blow your engine immediately, but you shouldn't have to top off oil over and over and over. So that's where we started seeing people posting about it on the forums and Facebook groups, trying to figure out what's going on. Now, the good news is that I have seen a couple TSBs about this, so I will post the numbers that I found down in the description. You guys can look across like BMW and Toyota products to see what's going on. Unfortunately, the TSB doesn't really authorize any warranty repairs or recalls or anything to address the issue. All a TSB does is it tells the technician what they should look at and gives them a little bit of focus so that they can spend less time trying to diagnose an issue. And in this case, all it does is tell them to top off the oil and send them on their way. So it's basically trying to indicate that it's a typical normal issue that doesn't really have a root cause yet. I know another thing that people are sharing is the literature from BMW that specifies the maximum amount of oil consumption that's acceptable on our engines. And I really want to reiterate that this is a max. Some people are kind of rewording it and saying that this is typical or expected or a normal amount of consumption of oil, and that is definitely not the case. What they are doing is providing this guidance. So again, the technicians know if it's above this limit, then it's not something that's going to be approved for like a significant warranty repair. The only time they'll do things like replace engines or rebuild components is if it's below that threshold, which kind of indicates, okay, this is quote unquote excessive oil consumption and needs to be addressed. So the guidance is basically saying that it can burn up to a quart of oil every 1,500 miles before they really have to do anything about it. Again, if it's above that, 2,000, 3,000 miles, all they're going to do is top off your oil. I actually faced the same issue with my coolant loss issue on my car. They told me the same thing. If it doesn't go from max to min within 1,000 miles, they're not going to address it. So because mine was taking more than that to completely disappear, they wouldn't do any significant work or diagnostics to figure out what was going on. So I think that's really unfortunate from BMW's side, because that's obviously an extremely low threshold already. So your car has to be burning a crazy amount of oil for them to do anything. If they're expecting our maintenance intervals to be like 8 to 10,000 miles, saying that a customer might need to go and get their oil topped off 3 or 4 times during that period is completely unacceptable in my opinion. A lot of people keep giving BMW and Toyota passes on this, saying, oh, BMW engines consume oil, it's a sports car, you're driving it hard, etc., etc. This is normal, when that's definitely not the case. This is maybe being put in 10% of the cars that we're driving, the M340i's and Supras, while probably more than 50% of them are going into X3s and X5s and other soccer mom cars, so they can just daily drive them every day. So this wasn't like a race engine. This wasn't designed with oil consumption out of the box. It's something that is happening as a negative side effect of something they did wrong. Now, just like with my coolant loss video, I'm going to recommend that people take their cars to the dealership, especially if you're under warranty. I know this is something that can really easily be addressed by you or I. If you're doing your own oil changes, then of course topping off oil isn't that difficult to do. And the DME tells you exactly how much to add. It tells you when it's a quart low. But if you bring it to the dealership, that continues adding numbers onto their traceability for how many people are having these oil consumption issues. And the more people that come in for it, even if it's just getting a free oil top off, it's going to get higher and higher on their priority list. So hopefully that can help motivate the manufacturer to begin addressing this issue and taking it more seriously. As far as fixes, some people have mentioned that going to a thicker oil seems to correct the issue. BMW has been shipping their engines with 0W20 oil since 2016. So again, this issue just popping up in 2020 and 2021 vehicles isn't something that we should say is okay, but I understand if you just kind of want to try to fix it and be done with it. So if you move up to like a 0W30 or 5W30, some people even go up to 5W40, that has fixed the issue for some people. Outside of that, it's really hard to tell because not a lot of people are getting the diagnostic service that this kind of issue deserves. They're not really seeing any leaks under the car. So the question is, are like the piston ring gaps too big, or is something else going on that's allowing the oil to basically be consumed? And hopefully this isn't doing something that could potentially damage the engine, rob you of horsepower, or cause any other long-term issues down the road when you're not under warranty anymore. Also, I forgot to mention, but keep in mind if you are buying a new car, you can always scan it with the dealership diagnostic software to see if the oil light has ever come on in the past. As long as they haven't cleared the code, you should be able to see historical faults, and that includes if the oil light came on. So you can scan it at a dealership or a mechanic that you trust with the dealership diagnostic software like ISTA, and if you see that the oil light came on in the past, 1,000 miles or whatever, then probably what happened is the previous owner topped off the oil, or the dealership topped off the oil, and they're just looking to pass it off onto the next guy. So highly recommend getting a pre-purchase inspection if you're buying a car with a Gen 2 B58. So yeah, that's just kind of how I feel about the oil consumption issue. Again, if you're looking for TSBs or any extra information, I'll link those down below so that you guys can see what the manufacturers are posting about it. Again, it's not super helpful or helping us fix the issue, but at least you know that it has their attention. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.